All right, we have a panel. I'm going to read the moderator's biography. It is spectacular. So his name is John Moore, and he is not a newbie when it comes to wellness. He is a member of the Spa Team International and is licensed in several spa disciplines. He entered the spa industry in the mid-1990s and created and ran all of Walt Disney's spas, salons, and fitness centers. He also appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show when she took her audience to the Grand Floridian Spa opening in the 1990s. He has owned spas, including one in the Celebration Health Hospital, and is consulted on more than 100 hotel, day, and medical spas domestically and internationally. He has written 11 books, and his current project, A Practical Guide to Wellness, is due to be published in 2023. Please join me in welcoming Mr. John Moore.
Welcome, everybody. You know, I know that it's close to happy hour, so we're going to make this thrilling and give you a really good show. And happy hour is a very important part of wellness, so we want you to all understand that we know that. We were just talking backstage about how resveratrol in wine is so important to antioxidant health. So we know that everybody's got that on their mind. So I would like to ask each one, and thank Patrick for the gracious introduction. It was very nice. I'd like to ask each one of our members to introduce themselves.
My name is Rika. I am with Hyatt. I run development in the eastern part of the country for our lifestyle wellness brands.
I'm Chris King. I'm Chief Development Officer for Salamander Hotels and Resorts. And for those that don't know Salamander, we are an operator of a collection of independent luxury properties.
And I'm Jessica Wadley. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Oakworks, Inc. We are a global manufacturer. We are in the healthcare space, the luxury spa space, athletic training space. And so what I usually tell people is if you're going to the physician and sitting on an exam table, that is an Oakworks table. If you're at a spa and experiencing a massage or a facial or medical spa treatment, that's an Oakworks table. If you're turning on the TV and you're watching the World Cup or MLB or anything globally, those are usually our tables on the sidelines and within the training centers as well. I'm also an ambassador for the Global Wellness Institute and their research, and I chair the iSpa Vendor Resource Task Force as well.
Oh, thank you. So I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to ask each one of our panelists to address you all to make sure you understand all the answers and how important this is to your overall health. So the first question I have is, what is wellness? And it's a question I think that if you ask 100 people, you get at least 99 answers that would be different. So I'm going to tell you this about wellness. It is not a fad. It is not a trend. It is a movement, and it is here to stay. And the other thing that it is a mystery. I've been doing it for more than 40 years, and I still haven't figured out where wellness is going and what it is. So I'm going to start off by asking Chris, what do you think wellness is?
I mean, to be honest, I heard one of the panelists earlier today refer to themselves as a Plan B, which is what I was. You know, I had to come in to help someone who couldn't make it. And so, quite frankly, I didn't really know how to define it, so I looked it up. And the Global Wellness Institute, and I'm paraphrasing, described it as the active pursuit of lifestyle choices in the pursuit of like holistic health, which I'm not sure I still completely understand that, but I think I would also say, in my mind, there's, at least from a resort operator or resort owner perspective, it's more than just an active pursuit. I think resort owners, and we'll talk about this later, I think, can create kind of a passive environment for people to, experience their wellness journey.
And Jessica, what would be your answer to what is wellness?
Well, you know, it's interesting because we're listening to one of the top hoteliers, and in reality, it's confusing, right? And each one of us have our own definition, and that's part of what we're struggling with right now from an execution standpoint is how do we implement it and how do we drive revenue out of it. Global Wellness Institute has the sectors defined by wellness. It is a $4.4 trillion industry, and when you slice and dice it, it's everything from fitness, beauty, spa, food and beverage, and it's all of those things that are encompassing. I will share that mental well-being is also a huge part of wellness. And when we look at the fastest growing sector of wellness, it's actually wellness tourism. And we've had the luxury of sitting here today and listening to every single panel and being able to almost listen to what the pain points are and what some of the hot points are. But I think the thing that should resonate with us the most is the 5-year growth that we're expecting out of wellness. I'll pause there and I'll come back to some statistics more later, but there's some really exciting statistics and data that support where wellness is actually going. And so I think, you know, for each hotel, for each of their brands, you know who your consumer is. We talked a lot about staying true to that hotel brand. When you slice and dice all of those wellness sectors, you're going to know which one is right for you and which one you should focus on. And it can vary by brand and demographic.
Demographics end up being very important. And I'm going to share one demographic with you that, you know, the baby boomers are the largest group that has ever populated the United States. But I got news for you. The millennials are the second largest, and they're about the same. And that's important in the United States because we have a group of 26 to 40-year-olds who are the largest group that use spas, by the way, that are involved in wellness, that believe in wellness, that are becoming the prime movers in our financial lives. So wellness is and will be a vital part of everything that we do in the resort industry for the next 40 years, guaranteed. It's only going to grow. What would be your definition of, Rika, of wellness?
I think it's ever evolving. I think it's different for everyone. I think it changes. Certainly speaking with a couple of people earlier, I think it changes maybe on a daily basis, weekly basis, year, where you are in life, what's going on. But I think it is the active pursuit of well-being, feeling well, taking time for yourself, taking time for your loved ones, trying to maybe work out some of that work-life balance.
So we've listened to some pretty varied definitions of wellness. And, you know, most people would tell you it's fitness and it's choosing the right foods. But it's choosing all of your lifestyle choices that will contribute to your well-being and your longevity. And in the resort industry, our guests expect us to think about those things and to provide those type things for them. Like in hospitality, we give them all the things they find at home, but only better. It's a better experience. When it comes to wellness, I suspect we're going to experience the same thing. They're going to look to us to provide wellness activities and make them like they do in their own lives, but only better. Let's hear some of the statistics, if you don't mind, Jessica.
So, as I stated, wellness tourism, I'm sure a lot of you know, but it's a good refresher, is a $4.4 trillion industry. The fastest growing segment of that is $468 billion, which is wellness tourism. The GDP is expected to grow 7.9%. Wellness sector is expected to grow 9.9% as we look forward. There's another very fascinating statistic, which is if you are a wellness tourism guest, and you did a very good job of defining this as well, that guest is really focused on their well-being whilst they're traveling. That's what the definition of wellness tourism is. That guest spends 30% more on their trip as an international guest worldwide. Domestically, it's 177% more when they are focused on their well-being. And that's expected to grow another 20% over the next 5 years. So it's very important for us as hoteliers to be very focused on different wellness offerings, keeping it at the forefront. And I think when you're looking at the finance piece of it, and of course our core passions and our missions and what we're here to do in hospitality, which is to serve, but the financial statistics are very, very telling.
The statistics are staggering. And if you look back a few years and you see the growth of the fascination or the focus on wellness, you can see this trend or this movement that's been going on for a while. And each of you and each of us can see in our own lives how maybe 10 or 15 years ago, we didn't think as much about our well-being and our wellness, but we do now. And it's only something that's going to grow as the statistics that you point out establish. So, Chris, let me ask you this. You mentioned something about passive. Now, if you divide wellness into active wellness and passive wellness, what would you say the hotel's responsibility would be to provide passive wellness? Or what is that?
I mean, I guess in my mind, it's kind of active and passive from the guest perspective. So active is obviously, making the effort to go to the spa, take a fitness class, whatever. Passive from the guest perspective is just that all these elements are there, and it's the obligation of the owner and the operator to provide the environment to the guest. And so obviously, again, it's the spa and fitness classes, it's the food offerings, but whether you're designing a new property or renovating an existing one, I think it's creating quiet nooks where someone might be able to read or reflect. If you've got any amount of outdoor space, it's fire pits, it's walking trails, it's any number of possibilities. But Rika said it earlier, it's, in my mind, wellness is a spectrum, and that's why you get so many different answers for what is wellness. And so you just need to be able to meet the guest where they are on that spectrum so that they have a fulfilling experience.
Which leads to the revenue opportunity. Because we heard from the statistics, if you do that, you're going to increase your revenue by putting more heads on beds and more utilization of your restaurants. If you have a wellness mindset on the offerings you have, and maybe you have something on your menu, our spa manager or spa director suggests this, or our wellness menu of the day or of the week. So wellness by itself creates revenue opportunities because people are geared toward that. And they want to stay at places and with people who also think of wellness as a lifestyle. Now, what would be your definition, or how would you say passive versus active wellness would fit into a resort's offering?
Well, so we own the Miraval brand, which is the very definition of sort of the wellness traveler, where people do come with the intent of maybe a life change, or really focusing and sort of immersing yourself in whatever wellness again means to you. But I think we've really started to leverage technology. So I do think that wellness is something we'd like to take with us on the road. A lot of it is to be able to keep our regiment or our just kind of keeping what we're doing at home on the road. So I think, again, speaking about it as a spectrum, a little bit like happiness, right? It is, it means different things for us, a different thing for us all. How we've sort of looked at it within the Miraval as sort of the group is truly to be the place for people that might be dealing with a life change, where they really come for the education and they want to learn something else. And a lot of that goes to meeting with a wellness or a health professional, understanding kind of where you are physically, helping you make some sort of milestones and helping create sort of a regimen. Then you have people that are very well immersed and wellness is part of their lifestyle, and they're just coming to sort of deepen something else. So I think it really comes to meeting the guest wherever they are in their wellness travel. I don't know if but it really comes down to being adaptable, flexible, being willing to help people, again, like really meeting that guest. And some people, it might be dietary restrictions. I think pretty much everywhere now you can go and find your oat milk if you're dairy free, or people are gluten free. These are things that just a few years ago actually was not even part of our vocabulary. And listening to you earlier talking about meeting people, and it's easier to present people with options that are sort of already familiar in their life. So wellness is taken a way more mainstream approach, which helps people to kind of get into the lane they want to get into, but it also opens up new opportunities to deepen their wellness experience, going into we were talking about mental health earlier, talking about maybe microdosing, things that are new into the wellness space, sound baths. So again, we try to meet every single guest where they are in their journey, and the luxury of having a property specifically focused on wellness, obviously you can broaden and deepen that experience.
Well, one of the things, of course, that I think that all of us are familiar with what's going on in the resort and the hotel industry is we see a participation of our properties into the local communities, that people from the local communities come in and support our restaurants, they support our spas, and it's a movement that, it has to be managed, but it's also a great revenue opportunity for all of us. And I think that we all agree that that helps us in growing our property's revenue stream. So I know that you've dealt in mixed-use projects, so how important would you say wellness would be to setting up a proper mixed-use environment?
Well, so I think that wellness is one of those drivers, right? If you're creating a mixed-use development, you are creating obviously something that has maybe retail, hospitality, residential, office space. So you have to set a tone for that. I think wellness is definitely a way now in today's market that everybody has to think of, whatever decision they make. Maybe they go a little bit more fitness, retail, let's say like Barry's Boot Camp and yoga studio, and maybe it's a juicery or it's some salad bar. And other people are going deeper, maybe into the medical space. We're talking about the beauty trend and the aging. So I think it's definitely part of your thought. And you can't leave it behind because everybody is, again, looking for something within this space.
Well, wellness is something that you've also got to be able to tell people about. And we all struggle a little bit with our messaging. Chris, I'd like to ask you to comment. How important is messaging, and what do you think messaging looks like in the wellness space?
I mean, I think it needs to be layered. For anyone that's here that listened to the ESG panel, right, you're going to get called out if you're making promises that you can't back up. There's just, again, on that kind of spectrum of wellness knowledge, you're going to have guests that know very well what they are experiencing, and if you're trying to lie to them, you're going to get negative reviews, it's going to get out, it's going to hurt business. So in my mind, throughout all the various messaging channels, whether it's the website when the guest is making their booking decision, to pre-arrival communication, to on-property communication, I want the guest to understand what their options are and very easily be able to dig deeper depending on how deep that individual wants to go.
Right. And so when you in making the options available, there's a great principle of removing all the friction. That is, make it easy for me to make my decisions. Whether it's in websites, don't make me struggle to make these choices. So you got to think in terms of reducing the friction, and so you can provide the services in an easy-to-access format as well. I'd like to ask you also, what kind of facilities do you think are important to provide the guest? I mean, fitness centers, is that important? What should a spa have? Is that important?
I mean, it all obviously depends on the specific property, but clearly the base level is spa and fitness. And then, it's going through your food and beverage options, as I mentioned earlier, where you can, creating little nooks or areas where you can meditate. Also, gathering spaces for people that want kind of a communal experience.
You're in and out of spas, and you're in and out of particularly spas all the time. What have you seen as far as equipment changes and new offerings and things that attract? And particularly what I'd like you to comment on for our colleagues out here is how important are offering products as a revenue opportunity, but also as an opportunity to connect on a visceral level with the guests coming in. How important are they?
The statistics are overwhelming because it's important to stay true to the fundamentals, which is spa and massage, which I'll talk about. No matter how we slice and dice it, everywhere we travel, Patrick and I travel on the road nonstop, Elena and I, and I'm sure your hoteliers will also speak to it, massage is still 80% responsible for revenues today. And the whole other topic is labor shortage, and I have answers for that. But simultaneously, there's real futuristic things happening. We have, for example, we're gonna have 20 new builds worldwide that we're shipping to this month, for example. And there's just really cool things happening. You mentioned it, and we've been defining all day, half of our future guests are millennials and Gen Z, and half are baby boomers. And so it's incredibly important to stay innovative and futuristic with that. So I'll comment, I did sign an NDA, but I'm gonna comment on the newest build right now of what is taking place. It's everything from IV solutions, and administration is huge right now. We are FDA listed, and so there's a lot of work going on with that. I know that from a lot of general managers' perspectives or ownership perspectives, that can be concerning. What about risk management? How do I implement that? And there are solutions for that as well. Regardless, it is a huge trend. The other thing that I see right now in huge trend is strength and conditioning, stretch. I know fitness is, we all took a jog this morning, but there is real science rooted behind some fabulous PhDs. I just came from the MLB winter meetings, meeting with all 30 MLB teams and working with their strength and conditioning coaches. And so this new build that I'm mentioning is gonna have a professional strength and conditioning program within the hotel. So it's really going to the next level. And then really, there's a lot, but the final thing that I'll comment on is really medical spas and beauty. And that can be almost a turnoff depending on your philosophies, but it's huge, especially as you're looking at millennials and Gen Z or boomers. Sometimes they want to retreat away. They want to have immediate results done, which in a selfie, narcissistic world is translating to health and well-being, mental health, right? And so they're going to want to have immediate treatments, within those locations. So we are seeing new builds be all-encompassing like we've never seen before. That being said, super important not to turn your back on the fundamentals. A lot of those things that I named are very high tech. I love this group because you're right, half the time it does not work. And half the time you have unfounded science that's being sold and recommended, and it's so very important not to turn your back on that premium, which is human touch, which is personalization, which is that emotional connection. And, again, another panel someday, see me after, but the labor concern is real. I've spent hundreds of hours of research on labor, and there are some real solutions for the luxury market. That's the key. For the luxury market, you really shouldn't have trouble recruiting.
So, to our point on stretching, I know from experience that everybody in this room has problems with the upper back and headaches at the base of their skull. And it's really a function of conditioning. You can make that go away because it's an interaction of several muscle groups in your body, and if you stretch and strengthen, it ends up going away. See me after the talk and I'll tell you how. For a low, low price.
The other thing that I want to comment on is it's just not spa. The other trend, and it is futuristic, is bringing wellness out of the spa into guest check-in, into guest check-in, really having a recovery area where I can reset my circadian rhythms. I can recapture some of my sleep. Not everyone wants to take off their clothes and put on a robe and go on the spa. And we're constantly, and that's a huge, huge part of your consumer, do not get me wrong, but bringing those wellness solutions out of the spa, in room, and also, how many of us arrive early, our room is not ready, and we go to the bar and we drink. Recovery is the new solutions where we're setting up recovery areas where you can actually recapture some of your health and well-being.
Which is a great segue to the next thing I wanted to bring up for our colleagues here. We've separated inside of the spa. The spa is about relaxation, stress relief, recovery, rejuvenation, pampering. That's what we've come to think of it. And we think of our salons, and we've got to include salons in our package as well. We think of that as more the vanity side, and traditionally that's been the vanity business. That's about beauty. Make me pretty now. Not me, that's a long time ago. but it's something that, when you think about it, it's something you said, Jessica, that the way I think about myself and the way I look is as important to my mental well-being as my physical fitness is to me. So it's something that needs to be combined into the whole wellness experience, and we need to accept it as a population. And by the way, the millennials already accept this. As part of wellness is a part of the beauty. So I'd like you to comment on what you think about that, Rika. What's been
Sort
your
of the Medi-Spa? Well, first of all, I just want to say, for me, I don't confuse spa with wellness. I think they're completely separate. Wellness really is sort of who we are and adapting in the world and sort of functioning optimally, whatever that means to you. So speaking about sort of Medi-Spa or trend and sort of where that's going, it's a huge part of obviously the business, and I'm sure you actually have the numbers, but I would say that yes, obviously feeling good about our self-beauty, but I do think, especially if I'm looking at my children, they're, as much as they are on Instagram and they're all sort of out there putting out sort of that type of persona, I think they're also working a lot more to acceptance of what they are, who they are. And I think that as they grow up is really going to be a major contributor to wellness. The fact that we're speaking about neurodiversity, we're speaking about mental health problems. This generation is very open about it. And again, the first step towards healing and wellness is obviously to be able to bring things out and talk about it. So as much as I think of it is important to feel good, and however you choose to do that, I'm a yay fan. But ultimately, the biggest beauty, sounds cheesy, but it actually do lie within and accepting yourself. And I do have a lot of hope for our sort of younger generation and how they're treating that part of wellness, because they are, post-pandemic, really been hurting and I think are leaning in towards wellness. At least that's what I see through my sort of younger things. So,
well, keep it on the subject of how beauty is being a part, or self-image is being a part of wellness. Jessica, I'd like to hear your comments, what you're seeing as you travel from resort to resort, from spa to spa.
I'll tell a story. This happened to be this week. I wasn't traveling, but I took a Zoom meeting from a PR firm. And she said, we want you to create a new beauty solution for Skinny Confidential. You can look at the podcast. It's the owner of that. She's a millennial. She has 134 million podcast subscribers, not listeners, subscribers. And so I heard somebody say earlier on a panel that we're looking at how do we cater to the children's money. This is the children's money. Without saying it, this woman has an $84 million net worth. We went to the same state school almost at the same time. And so she's self-gained. Now, what she's doing is she is talking about beauty, health, and well-being, and has leading experts on her podcast. 134 million subscribers who are millennial and Gen Z are listening to her weekly. And so it's a really cool source to see in beauty and that generation. They do have a tremendous amount of wealth. They're incredibly informed, and so it's important for us hoteliers to stay informed and stay on those beauty trends. Now, I don't want to be overwhelming because I think each hotel's philosophy is so special, and you know what those are. We can take the time to work with the wellness professionals and experts, and you can create and slice and do unique experiences based upon what's right for the property. I think is so important.
Right. So
you know your hotel.
Well, one of the things, Chris, that I know that you look at in the properties is you have to go examine the demographics, because we do talk about millennials versus baby boomers and Zoomers, Gen Z, Gen Y, and you can slice demographics up a lot of different ways, but how important is knowing your demographic and tailoring your messaging and your offerings to your demographic when it comes to producing revenue, additional revenue?
Well, obviously, the more tailored you can be to your customer base, the higher your capture rate is going to be, and the greater revenue you're going to generate. It, in my mind, it tends to be an iterative process, and you still need to offer that spectrum of services, but depending on where your demographic skews, that's going to inform you of what you want to offer. What, you can look at trends of what certain age groups or, male, female, whatever, are purchasing, and then customize your spa offerings or other wellness offerings to that demographic.
Right, so you may build a climbing wall for one demographic, because that's what they're interested in, but if you're in another environment, you may concentrate more on massage, or you may concentrate on quiet spaces or yoga mats. But I want to get a little bit into some of the revenue opportunities that you have by offering the right products in your let's start with salons. What would you suggest? I mean, how important are the products that you offer?
So interesting about the creating revenue and knowing your guests. So within the Miraval, almost 100% of the bookings happen actually by people picking up the phone, speaking to the people on property, and then they go through their expectations, their desires in that phone call, and actually schedule everything from consultations and classes and spa treatments and everything. So I do think you can never substitute. Actually, if you can't track it via technology, nothing is better than actually speaking to people and getting a sense of it. Labor intensive, yes, but again, like you mentioned, these people spend more, they stay longer. So really being able to, meet their expectations by speaking to them and booking. I mean, there is nothing to substitute. About the products, I mean, personally, I'm a little bit of a sucker for products, so I don't know that I am. I'm probably biased. I think that when you go to a salon and you have this wonderful experience, being able to, having learned something about the new technology or the new product, I personally like it. I would say many of the people I speak to in spa, it isn't necessarily a spa revenue. Some people do programs with certain brands where they essentially take the shelf space and it's almost run as a separate business to be able to separate it out.
Well, I can tell you right now that Patrick and I have fought this battle for so many years, trying to introduce products. And here's the bottom line that we push to the therapists and the people that work inside the spas and the resorts, is that our job is to present the product and to know what the benefits are of the product. You're not selling, you're educating your customer on exactly what the products offer. It's their choice whether they're going to buy them or not. And you're not doing the service properly unless you educate them. Am I right, Patrick? And it's very important. But choosing the right products, offering these products, and making sure you educate your customer is a part of filling their wellness needs. And you can't do one without doing the other. So it's important. The other thing that I wanted to comment on, and this is something I'll get you to comment on as well, Chris, is that what makes wellness work, especially coming out of the spa, if you have to integrate that spa into the whole resort experience. You can't have that spa sitting out there by itself, thinking it's going to be a freestanding building that's going to somehow get itself booked, because it's not. It is a part of your brand. And if your spa manager and your spa therapist integrate with the other people of your team, then your guests will be able to have better choices and better knowledge. Because if I go to a front desk and I say, I'm having a problem, my neck's hurting, I don't know. And say, well, you need to go see Rika in the spa. She does a great massage, and she's done that so much.
Is this because I'm Swedish? No, Swedish massage?
Well, it's a Swedish therapeutic massage, but that was good. But I mean, it's important that they're integrated and they're not considered an island out there. All of us who are in this industry, we wouldn't think about not having our front desk people or any people in our business not know about what we serve in our restaurants. Of course we want them to know, because the guest is going to say, do you have hamburgers? I don't know. That would never be acceptable to any of us. The same is true for the spa. So the more you can integrate, the better it's going to build your brand, and the better it's going to build your wellness as a brand, and the better it's going to build your spa and all your other offerings. How tough is that to have happen, though, Chris?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that just comes down to training. If in a luxury environment where your guests, whether they be overnight guests spending several hundred to, $1,000 plus per night, or even just a day guest coming into your facility, they tend to be highly educated, very knowledgeable, and you don't want to send that person from, say, the restaurant over to the spa. You want people to be able to have answers so that when a question is raised, they're satisfied, instantly. And so it's educating your various departments on what each of them may contribute to the wellness journey.
Okay, we actually have 2 questions from our colleagues out here, and I'm going to ask everyone to comment on them. So the first one is this: when it comes to exercise, it's the #1 goal for the travelers, and we all know that. The travelers want to be able to continue their exercise routine. They abandon them. How can we do a better job of helping them continue their routines when they come to our resorts? What would be your take on that?
I think that in-room fitness, and this is nothing new, especially it was driven by COVID, is the hugest trend when it comes to fitness within luxury hospitality. And it's also a premium. You can charge for it. I know that we all travel at different hours and we arrive at different international time zones. And to be able to reset and have the in-room fitness is a huge piece of it. And again, I'm just going to stress this. The new cutting edge really is professional and science-rooted strength and conditioning recovery pre and post arrival, I think, is the new trend. So for example, I'm seeing TB12's programming now being implemented within hotels and resorts. And so there's branded science-rooted programming that I think is the next evolution for fitness within the wellness space.
Chris, come on down and comment on that as well. How would you implement a wellness or a fitness program in your resort?
Well, I would agree with in-room. I think it also goes back to your messaging, and so your pre-arrival communication, providing the guests the opportunity to make contact with someone in the fitness facility, a trainer perhaps, where they can then have a direct conversation of, if running is relatively easy, right? A lot of properties will provide running maps and suggested paths, but maybe it's a particular fitness routine so that that guest knows this equipment is here. Perhaps the trainer can provide a recommended workout for them during their stay, and maybe even multiple stays, something like that.
Rika,
Yeah, no, I think again, especially like everyone here traveling for business a lot, right? I mean, the hard thing is just, I think technology is helping us all, but one of the interesting thing is since we joined Hyatt, pretty much everyone in the Chicago office, I feel like, is like a major runner. And they all, through technology, connect with people on the ground. There's, shoe rentals, there is sort of running clubs. So to take it outside of the hotel and again, discovering the neighborhood, being part of the community, I think is a big, big upside and people seem to love it. For me, and I don't want to call out whoever said it earlier, but part of my wellness program is like a glass of Cabernet at night, and then I want the green juice in the morning. So, and I also think not to be overlooked is sleeping. Sleeping we haven't covered, but sleeping is one of the fastest growing sort of technology. Blinds, sort of sound system, great mattresses, circulation, air filtration, all of these things that basically help with any kind of travel jet lag. I think those are big opportunities that people are willing to pay for.
if you permit me a personal story, years ago I was asked by Walt Disney World to create a wellness program, and actually an exercise program, an aerobics program for their guests that were coming in. I didn't think it would work because, travelers like that are not business travelers, and if you go to Walt Disney World and you're in a resort, you may think that you want to go to a aerobics program, but you wake up and you say, no, I don't think so. So what we did was a walk and stretch around the boardwalk where we used the little expansion bands to do that. We did it for a month as a trial effort, and we had 2 people come during that whole month. So the lesson the takeaway is that what we did was, if we offered in-room yoga mats, then we had a much greater participation with a lot more comments. So accessibility in room is more important then some exotic aerobics program for those type of travelers. But there are travelers who want to continue their routine that they're used to at home. So they need to see the same equipment in your fitness center that they're going to see at home. Not as much, but enough so that they can do their routine. So you have to be knowledgeable about what equipment you put in. And making it accessible is very important because you're reducing the friction that stops people from doing their workout. So it becomes extremely important. And one more word on fitness centers. Fitness has changed. Fitness centers have changed over the years. You need more space to put mats for people to do aerobic type exercises or yoga type exercises, and not so much with all of the heavy machinery that you see in a fitness center. Now, we have one more question that we're going to have to hurry up because we've got a minute left to answer this, but you've already partially answered it. And the question is, what should we do? How can we expand the fitness experience outside of the fitness center, out into our grounds? And I think we've touched on it, but you want to take a shot at that? Why don't you start with that, Chris?
Yeah.
Technology.
I
You got 48
Technology.
seconds. I mean, really.
Technology.
Yeah,
sure,
technology.
Yeah, creating the spaces and allow.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts
Well,
on
I think both of your properties do some of the best in the world, of course, so better spoken from you too. But of course, what I really see globally that's futuristic is branded, athlete-endorsed fitness programs that are being wildly successful in properties right now because it's driving more revenue in that space and a little bit more towards the masses. So
I'm going to tell you from experience that you can have an on-call trainer easily. You can arrange for that very easily. The same for other fitness professionals to come into your resort and conduct classes. You can't, it's difficult to schedule them on an hour-by-hour basis, but you can do it for groups. There are ways you can expand that fairly easily. I think we've run out of time, and I want to thank you all for coming and
Thanks.
participating.
Thanks.